Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive into a topic that's super relevant for all you UPSC aspirants out there.
It's one that could pop up in both prelims and mains, so you definitely want to pay attention.
We're talking about the RBI's new Quality of Public Expenditure Index, or QPE.
And trust me, it's way more interesting than it sounds.
It's not just about how much the government spends, but how well they spend it.
Right, exactly. The QPE analyzes how public spending impacts long-term economic growth.
And get this, the RBI's report says that India's QPE is currently at its highest point since 1991.
That's a pretty significant finding. So to break it down, the RBI has identified 6 phases of India's fiscal performance since 1991.
Okay, so let's start with Phase 1, which covers the period from 1991 to 2003.
This was right after liberalization, a time of major economic reforms.
It seems like fiscal consolidation was the main focus, even if it meant less public investment.
Remember, India was facing a balance of payments crisis back then?
Oh, right. It was like a make-or-break moment for the economy.
Exactly. The government had to prioritize stabilizing the economy and getting its finances in order.
So like tightening your belt after a shopping spree. Not fun, but necessary.
Yeah, kind of. And as you can imagine, this meant that infrastructure development took a bit of a back seat during those initial years.
Makes sense. But then we move into Phase 2, from 2003 to 2008, and things seem to change.
This is where we see a shift towards capital expenditure and a boost in state revenues.
What caused this turnaround? Was it the FRBM Act?
You got it. The Fiscal Responsibility and Budget Management Act, introduced in 2003, was a game changer.
So it basically forced the government to be more disciplined with their spending.
Exactly. It set limits on the fiscal deficit and encouraged strategic allocation of resources.
And this allowed for more investment in long-term assets like infrastructure.
Precisely. It marked a turning point in India's fiscal management, but then came 2008 and the global financial crisis.
Oh yeah, talk about a curveball. How did India handle that while trying to maintain its own economic growth?
Well, that's where countercyclical spending came in. It basically means boosting the economy when it's slowing down.
Like a shot of espresso for a sluggish economy.
A good analogy. And while it might have increased the deficit in the short term, it was crucial for navigating the crisis.
It's like taking a calculated risk to prevent a complete economic meltdown.
Exactly. And as the global economy started recovering, India entered Phase 4 from 2013 to 2017. This phase saw a move toward fiscal federalism, with states getting more financial autonomy.
So states had more control over their own finances and could prioritize projects based on local needs.
That's right. It was about empowering those closest to the ground to make decisions.
But did this create any challenges in terms of coordination or balanced development across states?
It definitely raised some questions about how to ensure that all states benefit from growth and development.
Interesting. So then comes Phase 5 from
Yeah.
2017 to 2020 and the introduction of the GST.
Ah, yes. The goods and services tax. A massive tax reform that streamlined the entire system.
But didn't it also lead to some revenue challenges for the central government initially?
There were some teething problems, as with any major reform, but the aim was to simplify the tax structure and boost economic activity.
So while the central government adjusted, does states see any benefits from the GST?
They did. They received increased tax shares, which allowed them to invest more in development initiatives at the state level.
Okay, so now we arrive at Phase 6, from 2020 to the present. This is where we see the most dramatic shift in QPE.
The post-COVID recovery period has witnessed record-high capital expenditure.
And that's playing a significant role in India's economic rebound. It's like a testament to the country's resilience.
Exactly. But before we get carried away with celebrating the successes, let's talk about the potential challenges ahead.
Because let's be real, UPSC loves to ask about those roadblocks and how to overcome them.
Right. Absolutely. And there are a few key challenges that policymakers need to be wary of, like the pressure of providing fiscal stimulus during crises.
Right. It's necessary, but can put a strain on government finances in the long run.
It's like walking a tightrope between providing immediate relief and ensuring long-term sustainability.
Makes sense. So how do we find that balance?
It's a complex issue that requires a multi-pronged approach.
I'm all ears. Let's dive into that.
All right. First, we need to talk about ensuring sustained capital expenditure growth. Investing in areas like infrastructure, renewable energy, and digital transformation is key for a robust economy.
But we also need to be mindful of revenue expenditure, those day-to-day expenses.
Exactly. Streamlining things like salaries, pensions, and subsidies is crucial.
And what about fiscal federalism? Should we be doing more to strengthen coordination between the central and state governments?
Absolutely. Collaborative decision-making and resource allocation are essential for balanced development across the country.
So it's not just about giving states autonomy, but also about working together.
Right. And of course, this all needs to happen within a framework of fiscal discipline. We can't just keep borrowing indefinitely.
It's all about making those strategic choices and spending wisely in areas that will benefit the economy in the long run.
You got it. And this whole discussion could easily be an essay question in the mains exam.
Oh, for sure. I'd probably start by highlighting the need for balance between revenue and capital expenditure.
Good point. And then you could delve into the role of fiscal federalism and the need for collaborative decision-making.
And of course, I wouldn't forget to emphasize the importance of fiscal discipline and responsible debt management.
Excellent. You're clearly grasping these concepts and thinking critically about their application.
Yeah.
That's exactly what the UPSC is looking for.
Well, let's hope so. Now, what about the future of India's public expenditure? What should policymakers be focusing on?
One crucial aspect is transparency. We need to know where the money is going and whether it's being used effectively.
So we need strong data systems and accountability mechanisms in place.
Absolutely. This ensures that resources are allocated efficiently and public funds are used for their intended purpose. This could also come up in the interview round.
Oh, yeah. They might ask about the role of technology in improving transparency and accountability.
Exactly. And how it can be used to track spending, make data publicly available, and streamline auditing processes.
It's all about leveraging technology to minimize corruption and empower citizens to hold the government accountable.
Spot on. The RBI's QPE index is a valuable tool. But the real challenge lies in translating these insights into action policies and programs that make a real difference.
It's not just about the numbers, but the impact on people's lives.
Right, absolutely. It's about contributing to India's journey toward becoming a developed nation.
And as aspiring civil servants, we have a responsibility to understand these complexities and contribute to finding solutions.
Well said. Now, before we move on to part 3, where we'll explore some specific examples of how India is improving its public expenditure quality.
I'd like to remind our viewers to like, subscribe, and leave a comment below with any questions or thoughts.
We love hearing from you and engaging in these discussions.
And a big thanks to the Indian Express for the insightful article that formed the basis of our conversation today. Don't forget to check out the original article for a deeper dive into this topic.
Stay tuned for part 3. It's a tough balancing act for sure. Governments sometimes make decisions that are popular, but not necessarily good for the economy.
Yeah, like those loan waivers or subsidies that might win votes, but could hurt the budget in the long run.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So finding that balance between short-term relief and long-term sustainability is crucial. It's like resisting that extra slice of cake. It's tempting, but it's not good for you in the long run.
Okay, so how do we avoid those economic sugar crashes? What's the recipe for sustainable fiscal management?
Well, it starts with sustained capital expenditure growth. Investing in things like infrastructure, renewable energy, and digital technology is essential.
Those are the foundations for a strong and resilient economy. Right.
Precisely. But it's not enough to just focus on capital expenditure. We also need to pay attention to revenue expenditure.
Like those day-to-day expenses like salaries and pensions.
Exactly. We need to streamline those and make sure they're efficient. And remember, fiscal federalism.
Yeah, giving states more control over their finances.
We need to strengthen that coordination between the center and states to ensure balanced development across the country.
So it's about working together, not just dividing the money and hoping for the best.
That's it. And all of this needs to happen within a framework of fiscal discipline. We can't just keep borrowing and racking up debt.
It's like managing your own personal finances. You have to be responsible and prioritize your spending.
Exactly. And guess what? This whole discussion could easily be an essay question in the mains exam.
Oh, I can see that.
Yeah.
They could ask something like, how can India balance its need for social welfare with its development goals while maintaining fiscal responsibility?
Exactly. They want to see if you understand the complexities and can come up with well-reasoned solutions.
Well, I definitely start by highlighting the need for balance between revenue and capital expenditure.
Good. And then you could discuss the role of fiscal federalism and collaborative decision-making.
And of course, I'd emphasize the importance of fiscal discipline and responsible debt management.
Excellent. You're thinking like a true policy wonk. Now let's shift our focus to the future. What are some key things that policymakers need to keep in mind regarding India's public expenditure?
Well, transparency is crucial, right? We need to know where the money is going and how it's being used.
Absolutely. We need robust, data systems and accountability mechanisms to make sure public funds are used effectively.
It's all about making sure every rupee counts and reaches the people it's intended for.
Right. And this is something that could come up in the interview round as well. They might ask you about the role of technology in enhancing transparency.
Oh, yeah, like using tech to track spending, make data accessible to the public, and streamline auditing processes.
Exactly. It's about leveraging technology to fight corruption and empower citizens.
So it's not just about numbers. It's about building trust and ensuring accountability.
Precisely. The RBI's QPE index is a valuable tool, but the real work is in translating these insights into action, policies, and programs that make a real difference in people's lives.
It's about moving beyond the theoretical and seeing how these ideas play out in the real world.
Exactly. It's about contributing to India's journey toward becoming a developed nation.
And as aspiring civil servants, we have a crucial role to play in that journey.
Well said. Now, before we move on to part 3, where we'll look at some concrete examples of how India is working to improve its public expenditure quality.
I want to remind our viewers to like, subscribe, and leave a comment below with any questions or thoughts they have.
We appreciate your engagement and look forward to hearing from you.
And a big thanks to the Indian Express for the insightful article that we've been discussing. Don't forget to check out the original article for even more details.
Stay tuned for part 3.
Welcome back, everyone. So in the last 2 parts, we talked about the RBI's QPE index and the challenges India faces in maintaining high-quality public spending.
Right. Now let's get into some real-world examples.
Okay, cool. Where can we actually see this commitment to quality playing out?
Well, one of the most obvious areas is infrastructure. Remember how we talked about capital expenditure being crucial for long-term growth?
Yeah, India's been investing heavily in roads, railways, ports, all that good stuff.
Exactly. And it's not just about traditional infrastructure. There's a big push towards sustainable infrastructure as well.
Like all those renewable energy projects. Solar power especially seems to be everywhere these days.
You got it. That's a prime example of quality expenditure. It's about boosting economic activity while also addressing climate change. A win-win.
Totally. But what about social welfare programs? How's India ensuring quality spending in that area?
There's a growing emphasis on targeted and efficient delivery, like the direct benefit transfer scheme.
Right, where subsidies are transferred directly to people's bank accounts.
Exactly. It cuts down on leakages, and corruption ensures the money reaches those who need it most.
Pretty smart. Why did they do this sooner?
Well, better late than never.
Right.
And that's not all. There's also a big focus on outcome-based budgeting.
Outcome-based budgeting, what's that?
It means government departments are being held accountable for the results they achieve with the funds they receive.
So it's not just about spending the money, it's about showing results.
Exactly. It promotes efficiency and ensures that public funds are used effectively. And for you, aspiring as civil servants, understanding these nuances is super important. Imagine you're in the interview and they ask you, how can India ensure that its social welfare spending actually leads to real improvements?
It's a tough one. Well, I definitely highlight programs like direct benefit transfer, and I stress the importance of continuous monitoring and evaluation, making sure the programs are actually working.
Good points. And maybe you could even suggest some innovative approaches, like using technology to improve outreach and feedback mechanisms.
Oh, yeah, that's a great idea. Using tech to make these programs more effective and responsive.
Exactly. You're thinking like a true policymaker. It's really inspiring to see India taking these concrete steps to improve its public expenditure.
It definitely gives me hope for the future, but the work never ends, right?
You're absolutely right. There will always be new challenges, new priorities. The key is to constantly adapt and improve. And that's where you, our amazing listeners, come in.
Us, what can we do?
Your understanding of these issues, your commitment to good governance, your fresh perspectives, they're all essential for shaping India's future, especially when it comes to public expenditure.
Wow. That's a lot of responsibility.
Yeah.
But also pretty exciting.
It is. So as we wrap up this deep dive into the world of public spending, remember one crucial thing.
What's that?
It's not just about the numbers. It's about people. It's about making choices that lead to a better future for all Indians.
Well said. And a huge thank you to the Indian Express for their insightful article, which sparked this whole conversation. Don't forget to check out the original article for more in-depth analysis.
And to all our brilliant listeners, keep those brains buzzing, keep prepping for those UPSC exams, and keep striving to make a positive impact on India's future.
We'll be back soon with another deep dive into a topic that's relevant for your UPSC journey. Until then, happy learning.
And don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment below if you have any questions or want to discuss this further. We love hearing from you.
See you next time.